7/7, First Strike, Vigilance, Menace, Trample, Reach, Lifelink, Ward, pay 7 life. Do I have your attention yet? Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for another Modern video. This is going to be part of a series. Over maybe the next 2 to 3 weeks, I will be putting out 4 Modern videos, all from John, who is doing some playtesting for upcoming events and wanted some outside perspective on what their deck lists were feeling like. And the first of these is an Eldrazi Stompy deck list. So most of the cards here are very, very familiar to the Legacy audience, outside of Sire of the Seven Deaths, which was the card that I alluded to in our little stinger for the day. The other one that you might not be hyper familiar with is Ugin's Labyrinth. So when this enters, you can exile a colorless card with mana value 7 or greater from your hand. And if you do, this becomes a card that taps for 2 colorless mana instead of 1. And you can get the card back later on in the game. So conceptually, a lot of the game plan is the same as Legacy Eldrazi. You're still going to see things like Glaring Fleshraker and Kozilek's Command paired together, but this build as it stands is not maxed out on Sowing Mycospawn and is much, much heavier on 7-drops than what you might be used to seeing from the Legacy version of this deck list. We also have Worldbreaker rounding out the 7-drops here, and this is kind of functioning. Oh, it's not actually here. Hold up. I was about to say it's functioning as an additional copy of Devourer of Destiny, but that's not actually in this build. Interesting. I guess this one hits lands, and that is kind of a big deal. All right, so similar to Legacy play patterns, we are going to see like lock piece into threats here. It That Heralds the End is mostly not being played as an Eldrazi Lord here. The cost reduction on the very large number of 7-drops that you are playing is absolutely what matters here. Sideboard is mostly stuff that you're probably familiar with. Damping Matrix is something that is seeing a tiny bit of Legacy play now, so you might have seen that one already. Let's hop into a Modern League and see how this feels. Folks, if you find yourself enjoying Modern and find that you need a Modern deck list, please consider checking out my sponsor, toamagic.com, for some cards. Promo code ThrabenU will save you a little bit on your order, and they tend to have pretty good stock on constructed staples. That being said, let's battle. Okay, so we can Ugin's Labyrinth, Sire of Seven Deaths to play a Chalice of the Void very quickly. This seems fine. Then we can take that Sire of the Seven Deaths back to our hand at some point. We're on the play here, so our Gemstone Cavern does not have a bonus effect of any kind. So yeah, Imprint, 2 actual colorless mana, not 2 mana specifically for Eldrazi. And we'll pass the turn there. I may end up taking this Sire of Seven Deaths back as soon as next turn. Got a Valakut. I got a Forest. Go ahead and play an It That Heralds the End. We have another Valakut. That doesn't matter yet. Could matter in a bit. We'll just put that on Eldrazi. Bash on in there. So it seems like we're probably doing something like Scape Shift over here. Yep. This seems bad. So now everything is every basic land type. So as soon as my opponent controls 5 other mountains, shit's gonna go south real fast. I think I'm gonna leave this under here for another turn cycle. We'd love to kick a Sowing Mycospawn. 2, 4, 5, 6. We're not there yet. Oh wait, 7. We are there. Cost reduction of It That Heralds the End. Doing work. So let's Worldbreaker. Let's take out the Dryad. I think that's more important than answering a Valakut. Send on in with this. I have a 2-turn clock. Just kind of ignoring Sire of Seven Deaths. Razor. Not what my opponent is looking for. I guess this deck gets to like Green Sun for Dryad. Yeah. Now like the fear is here again. Yeah. Here we go. Oh god, am I just losing Worldbreaker? I think I am just losing Worldbreaker to Valakut triggers here. Yikes. I don't really have enough mana to just recast this immediately. We did not adequately pressure our opponent here. I can go ahead and play a Glaring Fleshbreaker. Put that on Eldrazi. There's no like sorcery speed thing here or anything right now. So 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's fine if I lose a land to get Worldbreaker back. But I could die this turn. So first land drop is 6 damage to my face, or 3, and I lose Fleshbreaker. Yep. I'm at 17. I'll take 6 here. That puts me to 11. Are we Primeval Titaning? Oh god, yeah. No, we are green sunning for Primeval Titan. So then Titan gets 2 more lands. I'm just going to see if I see anything interesting here. But this is the game over point. Okay, no, it's just 2 more mountains. So 3, 6, 9, 12 damage to face, not even counting the 2 from the Dryad Arbor attack. I am fully just dead here. You might be worth it purely to be additional answers to the Dryad. A Disruptor Flute. My opponent has things like Arboreal Grazer and Lightning Bolt. I am unsure how powerful these lock pieces actually are. They do not feel impressive to me. I think I'm going to turn Trinispheres into removal spells. I think I'll keep Chalice of the Void, and I think I'm going to go down 1 All is Dust. That kind of feels like my plan. I guess I could Dismember as additional removal instead of Chalice of the Void. That is potentially better. So I play Glaring Fleshbreaker on turn 2 into Sowing Mycospawn. This is probably fine. Temple and pass. Maybe it's a play draw thing where I keep the chalices on the play and I play Dismember on the draw. That is potentially reasonable. Is there a reason for Bobble, or is that just effective deck thinning? Like, is there Unholy Heat or something over there that, like, Delirium matters for? Unsure. Obviously, that goes on Eldrazi, and we'll Glaring Fleshraker. I don't get the Sowing Mycospawn Wasteland cheese in this format, which is probably a good thing. That's kind of fucked up even by Legacy standards. I get to play Sowing Mycospawn next turn into Worldbreaker the following turn. Ooh, shit. So now my land's only tapped for 1, so I don't actually get to do the thing this turn. Alright. That's actually a really big deal. Like, that just is 1 mana. But my opponent has bought at least 1 turn. Probably much more. Because, like, I fetch something like Sowing Mycospawn. Sorry, I use Sowing Mycospawn to fetch, you know, a land that would produce 2 mana to ramp me towards these, and it just doesn't do its thing. That's very bad for me. Like, just set me back, casting Sowing Mycospawn. That's just a colorless cantrip. Okay. So I think deck thinning is the answer. So, Secluded Courtyard. Name Eldrazi. Oh fuck, this is worse than I thought it is, isn't it? No, I still do get colored mana. Okay. If it produces 2 or more mana. I will Sowing Mycospawn. Start doing Glaring Fleshraker stuff. That's going to be my bridge to the stuff like this. I guess I am going to get Eldrazi. I could get Ghost Quarter. Let's get Ghost Quarter. Do another damage. Attack for 2. Next turn I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Next turn I could Worldbreaker. 4th land drop. Opponent's at 9. Facing down 5 damage. So that can get the Dryad. Oh, it's Free Strider Lookout instead. Oh, okay, that's the reason for the relics and the baubles. Got it. So that accelerates a Stomping Ground into play. Not actually that big of a deal. So how do I want to do this turn? My biggest problem is that I have to tap Ghost Quarter if I want to cast a big card. I think I am going to Worldbreaker. I think this is just too much damage to give up here. So let's execute. Let's exile the Valakut. Just deal some direct damage and attack in for 3. And then the plan is just All is Dust, swing lethal next turn. I don't think Free Strider Lookout is going to outmuscle me here. And the World Breaker on its own is already lethal. Okay, yeah, cool. Alright, so the Wastegate Battle Mages coming in was a little bit better than I even thought. I think on the draw, I'm going to bring that extra All Is Dust back in and these Dismembers back in. We're just going to get better at killing opposing creatures. Because now I know that my opponent also has these, what are they, Free Strider Lookouts. And this hand doesn't innately do anything, but Glaring Fleshraker is a pretty dumb Magic the Gathering card. So I'm going to assume that this works out. You can Surveil. I don't think I need to play Ugin's Labyrinth on turn 1 immediately. So let's just play one of these Eldrazi lands. Second land drop. Yeah, so now I don't need to imprint anything on Ugin's Labyrinth when I play it. The slowdown here is real. We will name Eldrazi and pass. I need another bridge card. Get me into the mid game here. I need something to do the turn after that I play Glaring Fleshraker. Glaring Fleshraker also might just die. Sure. I will Glaring Fleshraker. The Damping Sphere is such a major setback. Like, I was not able to Glaring Fleshraker on 2, and I'm not able to Ugin's Labyrinth towards these 7 drops. Yeah, so here we are. So the Dryad is now live with Valakut. There's a second one. So All Is Dust. Stock going up. However, if my opponent draws a Haymaker like a Primeval Titan, we're just kinda donezo. I think I am playing out Fleshrakers on the off chance that my opponent does not have a land drop that actively kills this, and I get to make some mana that allows me to bridge towards an All Is Dust. I think I am just 1 card away from death here. So my opponent can take a redraw there, and they do. I am still just going to get hit for 4 per turn cycle in combat damage, so that's not great. Alright, there's a new relic, so that becomes more expensive to cast now. Thought-Knot Seer is fine. Thought-Knot Seer produces mana. So this is kind of a big deal, because now I'm not taking chip damage here. Alright, so Grazer is gone. I play Ugin's Labyrinth, no imprint. Go to combat. I attack for 2. My opponent's at 12. They've done some self-damage via Stomping Grounds. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Next turn I can All Is Dust. And that seems pretty good to me. Oh shit. Okay. Okay. So my opponent now gets a redraw. This could be bad. Flare of Cultivation. Oh no. That is now... Wait. Oh, it's 1 to hand, 1 to play. Okay, it's not both to play immediately. Not quite as bad as I thought, but it's still very bad, because now I don't get to All Is Dust next turn. I will have 6 mana. So I take 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and I'm dead on board to Dryad. So I need a live draw. Oof. That game swung back savagely. Yep, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I can't get my additional mana here. I am dead with 4 7 drops in hand on 6 mana. Very close one. GG's. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, and honestly, they're just the best at what they do. If you need to keep your deck lists online, this is the way to do it. They have all sorts of different viewing options. You can condense that text if you like things to be tight. You can make them visual grids. You can put them in stacks. You've got all sorts of different ways to kind of view and visualize your deck lists, and they also have some really cool functionality, like allowing you to see playtest hands and even fully playtest your decks. So check them out. Well, this opening hand has no lands. That is an auto mulligan. This one is very slow. I'm going to assume that it is ultimately fine. I'm going to get rid of the All Is Dust here. I am going to need additional mana off the top to be competitive this game. Giver of Runes after shocking. My Chalice of the Void is probably quite bad, unfortunately. Now, Giver can give protection from colorless specifically. We are probably not really looking to win the game via direct combat damage with double Glaring Fleshraker here. Like, we can deal a lot of non-combat damage, assuming that I have the time to do so. Violent Clearing. I will take 1. There could be something like Ophelia flashed in this turn. I think I'm going to play Chalice of the Void on 0 to make a mana. I don't think I'm playing that on 1 immediately. So let's play it that heralds the end. Actually, Chalice of the Void might be making me 2 mana. No Ophelia, just no turn 2 play. That destroys a non-basic land? Yeah, okay. Sort of damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. I do not love it. So I want to put that on Eldrazi. It enters tapped. Now that I can only cast 1 spell per turn, Chalice of the Void as a way to make mana becomes less attractive. I'll be passing the turn. I don't know this deck list well. I don't think I have a 3rd basic land. I think the Volatile Fault is just blowing up my shit if my opponent wants to. 13. I will try to use the ability. Yeah, rough. We'll see if my opponent immediately uses the treasure. They do for Recruiter of the Guard. I think this game is over. I think it takes 5 turns for me to die, but I don't think I win from here. Like, I take 2 per turn cycle. My lands come into play tapped. My opponent can answer the creatures that I'm playing here. I don't think I am trying to attack. My opponent can just protect easily. I'm just going to hold back. My opponent's got Solitude for when I actually stick something good. Oh, God. Yeah, hold on. Let's look for a basic... Fuck. This does not feel like it is going to be a fun matchup for me. I'm so close to doing things, but I can do nothing. And this now switches to 4 damage per turn cycle. Opponent doesn't even want to cash in Silent Clearing. Oh, God. Alright. I think I'm just fucking done. I think this is the point where I can tap out. It is very inconvenient that we drew the basics that game. Very, very inconvenient. Let's get some Dismembers in here. Do I need Wastecape Battle Mage? This is where not having format info is a little rough. I could Disruptor Flute. I don't know that that's actually good. I think I'm just going to bring these in. These have power and toughness at the end of the day. And keep me from taking some chump damage and potentially answer something or bounce a creature. So this opening hand can dismember a couple of creatures and lower my own life total very quickly, but has like no acceleration and is not doing anything unfair. I don't think I like this. I certainly don't like this one. I do not like being this far behind initially versus a land destruction deck that I think is already going to be favored against me. Let's go to 5. Oh, God. Okay. I could keep 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just Kozilek's Command as a redraw. Hope to run hot. I think that's better than going to 4. But this is obviously not great. Courtyard. Vial. Sure. On, scry. Draw a card. Take that redraw. Fuck. Come on, draw step. Hell yes. Believe? I think we believe. Imprint. 4 mana. We thought not here, trying to take up whatever can blow up Ugin's Labyrinth. Okay. So we take White Orchid Phantom, and we solve a short-term problem. We have long-term problems. Recruiter Ephemerate is very good. Okay. So now it starts to become like, do I Glaring Flushraker to set that up? I think so. Yeah. It's also unfortunate that we drew a basic land. Like, specifically not drawing those does matter. And then sometimes opponent gets Archon into play this turn, which would mean kicking Sowing Mycospawn gets harder. Yeah. There is some hesitation, though. There's something better to do with, like, Recruiter. Opponent is holding up mana. Well, figure out why. Cast with Kicker. So we will exile a land, look for a land, make a spawn, deal a damage. My opponent will ultimately end up taking 2 here. I don't think I care about Ghost Quarter. I think I will just get another Eldrazi Temple. Alright. 1 more damage. Opponent's at 14. We'll go to punchies. I'm attacking with this. I'm not attacking with this. Too many bad things can happen. Oh, I see. So it's Solitude and then Ephemerate it. Yeah, no, that seems good. My opponent gets to draw a card, and this Ephemerate is going to wreck me. So I lose Glaring Fleshraker, and at upkeep I will also lose Sowing Mycospawn as this happens yet again. Vial or Recruiter. The opponent's doing this with this trigger. Wait, no, the Vial trigger is no longer on the stack. I don't know why they did that before a draw step. Oh, they want to Ephemerate the Recruiter rather than the Solitude. Okay. You need 2 cards immediately? Liquor Wisp. I'm going to lose my Nulldrifter to White Orchid Phantom, so I need a new good top deck off the top. I have mana to do something with a 7-drop. I think I just trade here. I don't want my opponent flickering this Solitude later. So let's trade these. Get that Herald's the End. Not what I am looking for. I imagine that I do not have very long to top deck a reasonable card. I imagine that, like, Flicker Wisp Recruiter, Flicker Wisp White Orchid Phantom, whatever, ends up beating me. So if I lose an Eldrazi Temple, I have 2, 4, 5, 6. I still have 7 mana. So 1 more turn is fine. Marsh Flats. What does my opponent need 4 mana for? Or are they just trying to avoid silent clearing damage? Alright, so there's Archon. That's not good. That enters tapped. I don't have good attacks. And then my opponent can Flicker Wisp Recruiter, get Flicker Wisp, White Orchid Phantom. It seems weird. Oh no, it is second main. Yeah, so now my end step, Recruiter comes back. Opponent can get another Flicker Wisp, they can get a Recruiter of the Guard, they can get another White Orchid Phantom, get a Solitude, Stoneforge. I don't know that that's what I would have picked up, but I don't think it matters. Like, my opponent has 7 in the air already. Alright, there's the Stoneforge. Getting Kaldra. Yeah, Kaldra seems unnecessary to me. Like, I think you just want to beat me to death in the air while continuing to fuck with my resources so that this doesn't happen. Yeah, just all is dust. Bloop. Nice 7-drop in hand. Cool. I will attack into the active vial here. These things that are on board don't actually matter. A couple of life points might. Sword of Light and Shadow. Okay. I mean, that's very good if you get a creature to put it on. I am thinking about whether or not I am attacking with this Eldrazi Spawn token, or whether I am trying to keep it to block something that is vialed in. It's very bad if my opponent connects with Sword of Light and Shadow, but I might need to just pressure them, because, like, they are going to connect with this sword eventually. Their deck is full of creatures. I might need to try to end the game. I think it is a very close decision that if I knew the deck list better, I could probably evaluate more easily. I think you can also potentially hold this land here. Alright, do I get away with it? I get away with it. Vial remains at 3. Relic Warder is a dude. Dude who gets a sword. And then they're going to take 1 to equip. The lands off the top are not what I am looking for here. I don't get to attack anymore. I have 1 more turn. Like, I can just chump block with this Eldrazi Spawn token, and then I just need to draw something. I think if I have... Well, I guess I can, chump block with it that heralds the end. This card is not really important to my success this game. I don't love that as a 1-for-1. I think I'm going to chump block with it that heralds the end, and then try to get more value out of All is Dust. Yeah, I think that's my plan. Opponent is starting to send Vial up, by the way. Okay, sure. So this next turn cycle is going to be bad for me, because my opponent can do some very, very strong Sword of Light and Shadow stuff. My hope is that my opponent plays poorly, and just commits more stuff to board, and I get more value off of All is Dust. It seems to me like they are going to take another Solitude, which is a little tricky for me, because that one has Flash. I was hoping they would just, like, take a Stoneforge Mystic, play a Stoneforge Mystic. Fuck! I've just bottomed out here. I probably have to cast this one now, but I don't get anywhere by doing it. I just save some life points. I just needed anything else that could get in front of this next Solitude that's going to come down. But I don't get to do that. And I think I don't get to take advantage of my opponent's initial fuck up of not playing around all his dust better. The fault doesn't matter at this point. Yeah, Archon's good. Now my opponent can just get back the other Solitude. So just kind of live in this cycle. Dismember doesn't really get me anywhere. No, we are donezo. GG's. Put up a good fight, but my opponent's Volatile Faults and Archons and White Orchid Phantoms are very well positioned versus what I'm doing. Okay, we have 3 mana, kind of. Is this hand good enough? How much mana is in my deck? Only 23 lands. I think this is fine. It might get a little weird. Like, I might be casting Chalice of the Void as mana after playing Glaring Fleshraker. It really, really depends on what I see on the other side of the table here. This Chalice of the Void could just be +2 life. So, what's this? Whenever another creature or artifact is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on equipped creature. Okay. I'm gonna assume that this goes infinite with the, like, Eldrazi Duder that goes infinite with Blade of the Blood Chief. This goes on Eldrazi. I think I'm going to Glaring Fleshraker and make some mana. I'm gonna go ahead and always yield to these Glaring Fleshraker abilities. Reasonable that my opponent's deck might have Mox Opal in it. So yeah. The next turn I have 2, 3, 4, 5 mana. If I top deck a dual land, I have 7. Otherwise I can play it that heralds the end and crash in for a bunch of damage. Boseiju. Yeah, the Brood Scale. 5 mana, not 6. I can't do this with Kicker. We can go 1, 2, green, and 1 for Sowing Mycospawn. Oh shit. Oh no, nobody's equipped. Nobody's equipped. We're fine. Do I just get rid of that? I don't think I get rid of that. I don't think that matters. Famous last words. I think I just get an Eldrazi Temple. I think I'm going to play a Trinisphere. Now let's just yield to that. I'll attack for 2. I'm not sure if the Trinisphere matters, but it feels like my opponent needs more than what they currently have to beat me. I don't think they get to cast something while also equipping. Springleaf Drum. They have Eldrazi Temples too. Are you just playing Sowing Mycospawn as Urza's Saga Tutor? That's cute. Alright, so now my opponent can adapt. This is the sort of thing I kind of wanted to avoid by playing Trinisphere. So now they adapt, they put a +1/+1 counter on this, which makes a spawn, they sacrifice a spawn, so now they can have an infinite-sized creature. And I'm going to assume that they spend a little bit of time clicking on this. Alright, my opponent has stopped after making this a 20/20. It's at the point where if it connects, it does kill me. Oh god, Kozilek's command now happens. Yeah, fuck my Trinisphere. My opponent has now played a Glaring Fleshraker, which means that now as they execute this combo, it starts dealing damage to me. So at this point, we are dead. If I know the opponent's deck a little better, I might be able to finesse things just a tiny bit more, but I don't think I ever beat what just happened. Just inherently seems much more unfair than what I am doing. But we can get some interaction here, maybe even Damping Matrix. I don't really like the Chalices and the Trinispheres and the All is Dusts. And that just pretty much gets me to the right place. I don't know what the last cut is. I'm going to just trim one It That Heralds the End. I brought in a bunch of other early drops. I think that's fine. My Ugin's Labyrinths are going to be worse now that I've boarded out a bunch of 7 drops, though. Okay. This doesn't do anything. This can imprint with Ugin's Labyrinth, play It That Heralds the End, and work towards Sowing Mycospawn, I guess. That's fine. Possible it's better to work towards Kozilek's command than work towards Sowing Mycospawn. Sowing Mycospawn is not as strong in this format as it is in Legacy. I have some deck building thoughts already. I'll save it towards till the end of the video though at this point. Basic Forest, Ancient Stirrings. Opponent has gotten Walking Ballista. I have 4 mana this turn, but not 4 mana that includes green, We will just play Forest and crash in for 2. Let's pop out Walking Ballista so we don't forget that. I need something to do with my mana once I cast this Sowing Myco spawn. I can just get this back, but I would prefer to just draw something like a Kozilek's Command that can have a big impact on the game since I have an It That Heralds the End. 3 mana. Opponent gets a Glaring Fleshraker. You've got it. Ooh, they need mana now. I'll take 1. I'll take another one. The Walking Ballista enters and then dies. Oops, all Eldrazi temples here. Just briefly thinking about whether or not it makes sense to wait to do this with Kicker. I think it does not. So I will Sowing Myco spawn, pick up another Eldrazi temple. I'm fine attacking for 2 into Glaring Fleshraker here. My It That Heralds the End isn't really doing anything right now. Opponent's at 15. The next turn, I can put the Sire of Seven Deaths back into my hand and cast it while attacking for a decent amount of damage. But I am not interacting with what my opponent is doing here, so we very easily could just eat a very, very bad Kozilek's Command turn. Ancient Stirrings. Finding Cavern of Souls. Then it's Cavern into the Brood Scale. I'm at 16 after that. Another Sire of Seven Deaths. That's great. I'm just dead, right? So my opponent pays 2 mana, adapts. Now they need another thing to dead me. So I will return this to hand, do 6 mana for this. I'm just going to send in with everything here. Opponent's at 9. The thing is that if my opponent goes infinite, it doesn't matter if I can block the creature because I just get killed by Glaring Fleshraker, so I don't think I need to leave an extra body back. Opponent has found another Glaring Fleshraker, which is very scary for me. Malevolent Rumble. So I can find an Urza's Saga to work towards stuff. Alright, opponent gets Urza's Saga. I see another Glaring Fleshraker come down. I have some theoretical lifelink. I guess I have so many keywords on me that the trample means that my opponent can't just block and sacrifice. Maybe we're alright. Doesn't feel like I'm alright, though. Fuck! These are vigilant. Let's get in there. Make things happen. The opponent is going to go to 1. Then I get to play another one of these bad boys. For 6 mana. I am teetering on the edge of death, but so is my opponent. So someone dies in this next turn cycle, just like 100% of the time. The more of this clock ticks down, the better chance it is that it's not me that dies. Not dead. I do have to go to a game 3, though. I think I am more or less okay with how I have sideboarded. Okay, this opening hand can produce 3 mana. It can dismember something from the other side of the battlefield. It has Fleshraker plus Kozilek's Command. I think there is enough here to like this. Here we go. We have an early Urza's Saga. Then just passing the turn, I'm going to play Eldrazi Temple, so that if I top deck another Eldrazi Temple, I can potentially Thought-Knot Seer. Eldrazi Temple. That'll be a Glaring Fleshraker. I'm just going to kill that. There might be scarier things later, but I think I just need to use my mana efficiently here so that I can tap out for my own Glaring Fleshraker on my turn and threaten doing something unfair with Kozilek's Command on my next turn. Like making a bunch of spawns and exiling one of my opponent's things, for example, would be pretty cool. Alright, so there's Blade of the Blood Chief, which is another way to go infinite with Basking Broodscale. Agatha's Soul Cauldron. Sure. So how do I play this turn? I always make this land drop. I can Sowing Myco spawn with the mana that I have available, get an Eldrazi thingy, have 3 mana available for Kozilek's Command X equals 1. X equals 2 matters a lot more, though. I can just pass the turn with Kozilek's Command available instead of Thought-Knot Searing. Like, if I Thought-Knot Sear and my opponent has 2 copies of Basking Broodscale, for example, I think things go poorly for me. So let's just send in for some damage, and then try to bridge towards something unfair with some Eldrazi spawns. Basic Forest, yeah, you can eat the Dismember. That doesn't do anything. Eldrazi Temple, new Blade of the Blood Chief, and we're chilling. I am totally fine casting Kozilek's Command now. Let's make spawns, scry, and draw a card. I'm target player for both. This is only for x equals 2, but it makes me 3 spawn tokens, so it's going to end up bridging me to my next turn very, very well. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The 8th mana doesn't mean much. I don't want Nulldrifter. Let's think about multi-spelling. What if I start with Kick Sowing Microspawn? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then I have 3, 4, 5 mana afterwards. I could Thought Knot Seer. I guess let's just keep that. Just guarantee it. Opponent is at 14. So we will Cavern on Eldrazi. I will Kick Sowing Microspawn. Oh, I need to make green for that somewhere. Let's make it off Cavern. So, yeah. Exile Eldrazi Temple. Nobody's equipped for Blade of the Bloodchief purposes. Opponent does not float mana. I get a new Eldrazi Temple. I make a spawn. Deal a damage. I will then Thought Knot Seer. Blade of the Bloodchief's trigger, not doing anything. Always yield to these as well. Ooh. Ah. The Fear. Nature's Claim, my own permanent. Let's see if there's a thing over there for me to take. Could just be a land. Yeah, it's just a land. Now I'll go to combat. I'll attack for 2. Opponent is at 12. I have 4, 7, 8, 9 on board. Plus potentially a little bit more beyond that from Glaring Fleshraker direct damage. That's the land drop we know about. Thief of Existence. Exile up to 1 target non-creature, non-land permanent, and opponent controls with mana value 4 or less. If you do, it gains. When this leaves the battlefield, target opponent draws a card. Okay, so there was just nothing over there for them to do. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Kind of 10. I think I just evoke this rather than outright casting it. So we'll do the Glaring Fleshraker thing. I'll draw 2 cards. Get a new Thought Knot Seer. I guess this does enter, so Blade of the Bloodchief triggers. Oops. Does that even matter? Unclear to me whether or not that even matters. I should have attacked first. I think Sire of the Seven Deaths is just going to kill my opponent. It does make me give my opponent some more counters, though. But the Menace is a very real concern. I think I am just passing the turn here. My opponent can put more +1/+1 counters on this, but I'm just getting through with Sire of Seven Deaths as of right now. I think I fucked up. I don't think it's going to matter. Yeah, it doesn't this time. But I could have played that one tighter. GG's. I wonder if we are playing enough lands in this deck. Mulligan. This is fine. I'm going to keep this one. I probably throw back a 7-drop here. Alright, we have a Leyline of the Guild Pact on the other side of the battlefield. We've got a couple different lands that produce 2 mana. And hopefully we just find 1 bridge card in between Glaring Fleshraker and Sire of the Seven Deaths. Can I just play a regular old land here? I think I can play a regular old land here. Don't think I have to just Ugin's Labyrinth immediately. Thundering Falls, you've got it. And they like their card. Could be tearing down something like a Scion of Draco very quickly here. No immediate opposing action. Opponent is just going to ice my land. So, that's fine. But there's also just a mode on that card that kills Glaring Fleshraker. Now, I am not a format expert, but I've seen this card do absolutely heinous war crimes. And I think I would have killed Glaring Fleshraker in my opponent's spot. I'm actually rewarded for not playing out Ugin's Labyrinth earlier in the game because my opponent can't ice this, which means that I actually get to put the Trinisphere into play. Opponent's at 14 now. Misty Rainforest. Just tapping for red mana because Leyline of the Guild Pact is a thing. And we eat a Flage. So I'm going to lose Glaring Fleshraker now. I think I'm just catapulting towards Sire now, right? 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. Eldrazi. And there is Ward of pay 7 life on here. And like we know it's resolving because of Trinisphere. I wonder if my opponent is going to end up losing for not junking Glaring Fleshraker when they had the opportunity to? We'll find out. Like, opponent could have, like, very badly needed to draw an extra card and get deeper into their deck to promote their own game plan. But, like, now they're going to have some trouble filling the graveyard for Flage. Like, the fetch lands there can help out with that. The 7 damage per turn cycle that I'm doing is not going to do my opponent any favors, though. Even if they have gained a little bit with Flage. So we're chilling. I think it's pretty likely that, like, a Leyline Binding sort of thing ends up happening here, because my opponent started tapping some mana and then untapped it. Oh shit. Okay. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Attempt Thought-Knot Seer. Counterspell? Cryptic Command? Subtlety. Sure. I have 2, 4, 5, 6 mana. Is Thought-Knot Seer better than my average draw? So some of this big stuff is not castable. I'm actually on 6 mana. I think Thought-Knot Seer is better than my average draw. 5th land drop. Flage could start to do Flage things. It is a Leyline Binding. That's 7 life. That stings. So now my opponent cannot triple fetch to enable Flage. That's not online anymore. We will Thought-Knot Seer. Is one of those, we all know it's coming. It's also resolving because of Trinisphere. I will be taking the Flage. Okay, we get there. So it seems to me like if we don't lose to Flage, I probably have Inevitability. So I think I like playing Relic. I think I like playing Wastegate Battle Mage for these various enchantments that my opponent is playing. I think Chalice becomes these relics. And we could cut Trinisphere from there and just keep my entire creature core, which I think is probably fine. I'm going to need one more land at some point, but this is a clear plan. Just, like, start on Relic, curve into Glaring Fleshraker, and then double Thought-Knot Seer in the mid-game. I'm totally into this. Ugin's Labyrinth does not change any of that. Although it could mean that I'm playing Thought-Knot Seer before Glaring Fleshraker. We'll Relic, and pass the turn. Lush Portico, and opponent likes their card. Arena of Glory, very good with Flage. I'm just going to lazy person timing this. They got a card. So the maximum value play is, like, play Glaring Fleshraker and then try to ping opponent with it. But I think just playing Thought-Knot Seer is better. Like, I can play a 4-drop on turn 2. It is probably just correct to do so. Ooh, so we have Cascade nonsense over there. So my opponent can Cascade into Rhinos, which I will eventually outpace. I don't care about Force of Vigor. Alright, I guess I'll take a Shardless Agent. And pass turn. So my opponent will Breeding Pool, and then they can Ardent Plea. Make their Rhinos. City and Charmaw, something that should be on my radar. Got it. Why don't you get rid of a card from your graveyard? Get to that, Herald's the End is perfectly fine here. So we will go 1, 2, 3, Glaring Fleshraker, 2 mana, get that Herald's the End, which will give us a bonus mana for next turn. That guaranteed gets us to 7 for Sire of the Seven Deaths, which very easily beats Rhinos. This is now a 5/5. I could trade that with a Rhino token. I don't think there is a need to. We are flaging. Oddly, right now at this exact moment, the most valuable thing for me is actually this Eldrazi Spawn token. I don't think that is obvious from the other side of the battlefield. And would honestly probably kind of be a crazy call with, like, Glaring Fleshraker and It That Heralds the End both being right there and doing potentially scarier things. I also think you can potentially Flage post-combat if you want to swing in with Rhinos. I'm not sure how exactly my opponent's last couple of draws have developed. Where is this going? Okay, it is going at the Fleshraker. We'll just immediately have that get out. Never have that come back. Land drop. Okay, opponent is going to attack with a Rhino for exalted purposes. I don't think I want you to draw a card. I will take 5. That's fine. Life total is a resource. Ghost Quarter. 2, 3, 4, 5. I can't, like, all his dust this turn or anything. I will Sire of Seven Deaths. Does not cost me my spawn. Opponent has a response. Is it just a surveil land? It is just a surveil land. Why don't you move a card from your graveyard, though? Opponent has another land. Now at this point, my attack back is totally fine with Sire of Seven Deaths in play here. Opponent's at 12. I have an 8/8 lifelinker from hell, and All Is Dust is also looming. Okay, we get there. Starting to redeem a league that was off to a rough start. Alright. I gave my opponent a mini heart attack by thinking that they had accidentally joined a legacy queue. Nope. ThrabenU playing a little bit of modern. Hand looks reasonable. We have It That Heralds the End into Glaring Fleshraker. And opponent has some mana ramp. I don't think what we are doing here is likely to change very much. And I'm going to assume that I'm probably playing Chalice of the Void this game as Lotus Petal with Glaring Fleshraker. White mana. Oh, it's just Grist. Yeah, no, Grist seems perfectly fine and good here. Wow, hyper aggressively going after It That Heralds the End here. That is slightly surprising to me. I guess I don't have colored mana yet, huh? That's a thing. What's a Glaring Fleshraker? 2, 3, 4, 5. I think I just want an immediate mana out of this. Yield to both of these triggers. Colored mana source off the top would be real clutch. Alright, Green Sun deck confirmed. It seems like we are doing combo stuff. Okay, yeah, so looks like Yawgmoth stuff. I'm always playing this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mana. So nothing castable here, including Evoking Nulldrifter. Does it make sense to Ghost Quarter? If I float mana, I Ghost Quarter. Ghost Quarter gets me basic Forest. I will have 1 mana, 2 mana, 3, 4, 5 mana. I can't kick Sowing Myco Spawn, but I could Sowing Myco Spawn. I think that is ultimately worth it. It's just fucked up. We have gone deep. The Forest, 4 mana, cast Sowing Myco Spawn, do the Glaring Fleshraker thing. I think it's just Eldrazi Temple, and I kick Sowing Myco Spawn next turn. I think that's better than Nulldrifter draw 2. My opponent takes 1 more damage here. 4 colorless mana right now, not 4 colored mana for Sowing Myco Spawn. Let's see if we die to something. I don't have the most experience playing against these Yawgmoth decks, so I just don't always know what to be playing around. I'm always kind of figuring it out live. Oop, turn off auto yields. Do not yield through this turn. Ooh. So Glaring Fleshraker has been pinged. Port of Calling for 4. Alright. So now my opponent is doing Yawgmoth stuff. So I'm gonna lose my creatures. Now Young Wolf gets sacrificed. It has Undying. My opponent puts a counter on Sowing Myco Spawn. And then they put a counter on Young Wolf to reset it. And then they can kind of keep doing things here. My opponent's not at that much life. So there can only be so many activations here. There's land drop. Riad Arbor. Okay. Do I just cast the 7-drop Menace creature? It seems like I just cast the 7-drop Menace creature. It does cost me my spawns. My opponent is at 7 life, so they're not killing this. They have ways to kill it, but they're not killing this. They have to just block their way through that or whatever. Which is a little tough with First Strike, Vigilance, Menace, Trample, Reach, Lifelink, or Wall of Roots mana. Are we getting another Chord of Calling? No. Yes, but paying for it differently? No. No is the final answer. I do not know my opponent's deck well enough to speculate on what they should be doing with a Chord of Calling. Malevolent Rumble. Agatha's Soul Cauldron is sweet. And my opponent did take it. Chord of Calling for 2. This is a treasure token. Whenever another creature you control enters, you gain 1 life. Okay. The Walking Ballista just gets countered. Now my opponent can play Agatha's Soul Cauldron and put +1/+1 counter on something. Yeah, on Young Wolf. So now Young Wolf pings me for 2. And I think this is the point where I die, right? Because my opponent, like, does this whole pay 1 life, draw a card thing, and then as soon as it gets a +1/+1 counter from Undying, they can ping me for 1. Yeah, so this seems like a loop. At this point, I am dead through my Sire of the Seven Deaths. Got it. Damping Matrix seems cool. Disruptor Flute seems cool. Dismember seems cool. I don't think I like these Chalices and Trinospheres more than I like this stuff. I'm going to trim one piece of late game. I don't know, it does get rid of an artifact on an Agatha's Soul Cauldron deck, and all his dust doesn't clear that. Get rid of a different 7-drop. Then let's sort this by mana value. I don't know, trim one, hit that Herald's End. I guess. This feels so incredibly fair. I'm going to lean on the fact that Glaring Fleshraker is a busted Magic card. And just kind of hope that this ends up being okay. For sure. We'll just go Eldrazi and pass here. For mana efficiency reasons, I will almost always cast Disruptor Flute on this turn. Like, I have Glaring Fleshraker into Thought-Knot Seer as things that are coming up. Yeah, that's fine. That's also fine. I'll end up taking that one. I'm just going to go ahead and play this now. Yawgmoth, Thran, Physician. Take 1. Dismember is fine. I did not click Citizen there. I clicked Eldrazi, but okay. I don't think that is likely to be a relevant error this game. Womp. Green Sun for 3. Wrist seems good. Wrist is good. Particularly with Undying Creatures here. I get poked for 1. I am playing a Glaring Fleshraker again. This Grist is going to threaten to kill this other Glaring Fleshraker as well, unfortunately. Maybe I get to wiggle my butt a little bit with Dismember and make that not true. But I just want a little bit of bonus mana off of it to try to get me to something like All Is Dust. Malevolent Rumble. My opponent has chosen no cards? Oh, I see. So that they can instantly put it under Agatha's Soul Cauldron. So that just allows 2+1/+1 counters here to instantly ping Glaring Fleshraker. I guess I make them ping it. Yuck. I am at 14. My opponent can also just like put more +1/+1 counters on creatures. I think this pretty likely beats me. We'll name Eldrazi. So I just keep playing cards in an effort to make it to 7 mana. But like Grist plus Walking Ballista abilities probably just ends up leaving me in a very bad place overall. Running Soul Lands might do it. I guess it doesn't have to be running Soul Lands, right? It can be Soul Land into regular land or vice versa. Something terrible is happening. Forward for X equals 2. Or Blood Artist. Yeah, no, this seems bad. So Young Wolf gets a counter. Young Wolf has Grist abilities. Oh shit, does this kill me? The Young Wolf comes back with a +1/+1 counter and has Walking Ballista abilities. Yeah, no, this just outright kills me. Rough. Alright, GG's. So much for Disruptor Flute there. And we put 2 wins on the battlefield this league. Alright, so how do we feel about the deck list? And I say this as someone with no context for what an Eldrazi deck is supposed to look like in Modern. It feels to me like this deck is not good in its current iteration. Like, I don't understand why we are playing 13 7-drops and not playing 4 Sowing Mycospawns to bridge to them. That doesn't make sense to me. It also doesn't really make sense to me to not be playing Devourer of Destiny. Like, this card is a free cantrip at the beginning of the game that also exiles something and helps stabilize the board once you do get to 7 mana, and you're often behind when you get to 7 mana. I don't think I like this build. I do not believe that we ever successfully cast a Nulldrifter in the entire league. I felt like I was often short of 7 mana by just a little bit. I think the colored mana sources in the deck are fine. I personally am not a particularly big fan of Gemstone Caverns as a card. I very much dislike this card. I've been on record for disliking it for a long time. It might make sense in this deck since like catapulting forward by 1 mana is a really big deal. Ultimately, it feels like I was not doing something innately broken enough. A lot of times I just died or I got to do cool things. Like, I think the largest Glaring Flashbreaker Kozilek's command that I put up in the entire league was like X equals 2. I died a lot of times with 7 drops in my hand that I was just short of. I don't think this deck is successfully making it to the late game. I don't know if it needs more mana sources. I don't know if it needs some talismans or something, but it does not feel like we're quite there in terms of design. You know, this deck was called Eldrazi Stompy. I don't think we stomped very hard. I don't think we aggroed very hard. And I also don't think we endgamed very hard. I think we just kind of awkwardly ended up in the middle in a lot of matches. And with some tighter play and more format knowledge, like, you know, maybe results are a little better here. But I do not feel like what I was doing today is fundamentally powerful with this build as it currently stands. In good news, there was another version of Eldrazi submitted, so we'll give that a try in a little while. I don't think I have anything specific to say about the sideboard. It felt like I had decent options available to me. With that being said, folks, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day, and thank you for watching. If you need some cards, you know where to go. Use promo code ThrabenU to save a little bit on your order. All right, see ya.